Manglis, and then he went to Mango, and then just some guy at school started saying Spango, and that was at public school, and then it stuck right through to high school, right through to now, you know, yeah. And the nickname, and no one knows me really by the real name. They just, well, they do, but basically it's, oh, do you know Alex? Alex here? Spango. Oh, yeah, I know Spango. Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, those are people who like me anyway. 67, February. Yeah. War Memorial Hospital in Waverley. A lot of fishing. I used to love fishing. Dad was a mad spear fisherman, and so we used to go watch Dad on the rocks. We'd sit on the rocks and Dad would go spearfishing just around the local beaches here, and then we got it. He'd take us fishing, and that got us hooked on fishing. And then you know, just like the normal kid, we got coolites from the hardware in those days, and then we just grew up surfing the breakwall at Clovelly Beach, played rugby, you know, union and league, and just, you know, in those days you weren't, sitting inside your house was forbidden. You had to get outside and do stuff on your push bike or your billy cart, and, you know, there was no iPads or, you know, Nintendo or any of those sort of things. Basically, I've done everything, qualified at nothing. But you name it, sweeping factory floors to fitting car stereos to labouring, stonework, bar work, door work. You know, then a good chunk of my life was getting a start at the airport as a baggage handler, which led me into doing push-outs, pushing the aircraft out. And then, you know, the dreaded COVID came along and sort of stopped all that. But in between all that, I've always had a fascination for music. So I played drums sort of, well, basically a good portion of my life. So a lot of my nightlife was either going to watch bands or participating in playing in bands, which was, mate, it was unbelievable. It was unreal. What an experience. Oh, well, I loved Kiss, loved AC/DC, loved Purple Sabbath, you know, all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, all through my brother. My brother used to listen to Zeppelin and Sabbath and Pink Floyd, just to mention a few, and, you know, Purple, and then all the American stuff like the Motels, Loverboy, Foreigner. And then we grew into all that sort of stuff like Van Halen and, you know, all that other stuff, you know, the Poison, the Rat. But then we all went back to, in other words, the 80s metal hair stuff, if you like. I went with my brother, because at 15 or 16 I had growth. And I went with my brother, we went to the Tivoli in George Street, and we went and saw a band called Full Marks, who was supporting Sharon O'Neill. And I just remember being in there and I thought, mate, how good's this? Not necessarily, I mean, Sharon O'Neill was unreal, but just looking at the band, looking at the bass player, looking at the drummer, looking at the guitarist, and I'm going, mate, this is awesome. I want to be a part of this. You know, Jimmy and the Boys and Richard Clapton and, you know, this sort of stuff, just local, just down the road. Amazing. I just got hooked on this whole Kiss hysteria thing, you know, like I just loved Kiss, and I loved watching Peter Criss when I could. You know, Saturday mornings, you'd be hooked to the television between 9 and midday watching Donnie Sutherland doing sounds, and you're praying there's a Kiss film clip. I remember getting my first kit, and believe it or not, I collected aluminium cans to get $400 to go to Parling's Music in George Street, Sydney, and with my mum. And we went in there and we bought a drum kit for $3.99, and it was coming in a week, getting delivered to our house in a week. I had a week of not sleeping. And when the kit came, the guy delivered it to the front door, and it was one big cardboard box, like a washing machine cardboard box. And everything folded out like you know, the drums were inside each other. And my cousin was playing drums at the time, so I brought him around to my house and he helped me assemble it. And we assembled it in my lounge room. And the first thing I could play was ELO, Don't Bring Me Down. You know, boom, cha, boom, boom, cha, boom, cha. And that's the first thing I played. And I drove the neighbours absolutely effing crazy with that drum beat before I learnt another drum beat. I've got Ludwig kits, Tama kits, Premier kits. And if you tell me now my favourite, it's my little Premier kit from the 60s. It used to be the trading post in newspaper form, and you'd scour the ads, musical instruments for sale. And I found this Premier drum kit for sale for about $400, and this guy had it, and he lived in the high-rise apartments in Redfern, the housing commissions. There's three big tall towers next to Redfern Oval. Out came the kit, and I said, mate, this is unbelievable. And I think he was an old jazz player, and I've still got that kit to this day, and I still use it, and people still comment about the kit. Geez, mate, I'd love that kit. I'd love that kit. Yes, and I've held on to that kit. All the kits have come and gone, but I've held on to that kit. I joined my first band probably when I was 15 or 16, and it was a band called SMO, and the two boys lived in Redfern, and I couldn't drive in those days, and you know, God bless my old man, he used to drive me every Sunday to Redfern, and I'd put the kit in the car. Dad drove me to Redfern. He'd drop me off, and we'd rehearse in this church in Redfern all Sunday afternoon in this church, and there was a beautiful hamburger joint across the road, and we'd go in there and buy 2 burgers and a can of Coke, and then we'd come back and we'd eat, and we'd be so excited. It was a 3-piece, and we'd play all afternoon, and it was unreal. It was unreal. Okay, well, I'm working all week, but Friday night, you know, there's a band on down Salinas, or the Spies might be playing up the Cock and Bull, and I'd go and see them. And that'd be my fix. Seeing a really good band where I'd come out sweating, going, mate, that's the best $8 or $10 I've paid, because, and then I'd listen to that music all weekend. Or being a surfer as well, we'd be driving up and down the coast, and whatever, these cassettes of bands, and we'd throw them in the tape deck, and then we'd be revved up, because not only did we see the band, but we'd be driving down to like Gary or down to bloody Green Island or somewhere, and we're pumped listening to this music going, and you'd surf like a mate. Well, try to surf like a maniac, because you'll pump by listening to this music that you went and saw 2 nights ago, going, how good's this band? Yeah, walked up to Richard Clapton saying how good he was. You know, walked up to blocks him out of the Spies at Cock and Bull one night saying how good you guys were. You know, walked up the bloody Neil Finn in the Coogee Bay Beer Garden when Crowded House was sort of, probably had their first album on the radio, and he just walked in the beer garden at the Coogee Bay Hotel, and I had to say to him, mate, I really love you, you know, Paul's such a great drummer. He said, thanks very much, buddy. You know, just, why not? Why not? They're human as well, you know. Not too long ago, I went and saw the Hard-Ons with Radio Birdman at the Manning Bar, and, well, the Hard-Ons still came on stage with Tim Rogers singing, actually, which I think he's one of a great frontman as is anyway with UMI. But I think seeing the Hard-Ons, mate, they were on stage sweating, going mental, and I thought, mate, this is unreal. And then Birdman came on, and they still jump around, going nuts. Mate, if we don't get entertained, we'll let you know. And when we get entertained, we do let you know. Whether it's fists in the air or pushing and shoving or yelling out. And you know, I don't know what the crowds are like in the States or Europe, but I think the bands here just go off because the crowd goes off. Actually, I drove down to Waves at Wollongong to see the Baby Animals. Anyway, I was at the front, and Suze DeMarchi decides to jump in the crowd like stage dive. And no word of lie, like every other young male at the time, early 90s, you know, Susie was like, wow, Suze DeMarchi, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she jumps out in the crowd and she lands fair dinkum, smack bang, on me like an octopus. And I'm on the floor with her on top of me, and I don't know, 3 or 4 people on top of her. And it seemed like it was forever. But in, I don't know, 8 or 10 seconds, one by one, they've got off, she's got off, she's managed to get back on stage and continue doing the song. And I'm in awe, going, mate, Suze DeMarchi was just on top of me. And then when I get eventually the gig finishes and I meet up with my girlfriend, I've got one of her earrings, I assume it's one of her earrings, stuck in my shirt. But mate, you want to rock, I'm sorry, Back in Black, ticks all boxes. My first album I owned was Beatles Rock and Roll Music, and I bought it for $8. from Slipper Disc Records that was in Bondi Junction. It was $8 for a double vinyl album, and I took it home and I played that thing religiously. I used to just over and over lift the noodle back in the USSR, lift the noodle back in the USSR. That was just, oh, this is rock and roll, man. In the near future, I've got tickets for Richard Clapton, and I've also got a ticket for the Hoodoo Gurus. They're doing a show at the Enmore Theatre in late November, early December. Yeah, I remember being at Sydney Airport, and I actually met the whole band, Sabbath, but with Ronnie James Dio. I remember I spoke to one of the girls at check-in once, and I said, listen, you couldn't find out when Sabbath had come. She says, yeah, they're coming in, I think, tomorrow morning. They're coming up from Melbourne or coming down from Brisbane. I wasn't too sure. But they weren't travelling, as Vinny Appice or Tiny Iommi or, Ronnie or Geezer Butler or whatever. They were coming in with... Anyway, she told me the flight, so I grabbed my Rainbow Live on Stage vinyl and I took it with me to work, and I checked out when they were landing. When they were arriving at the airport, cut a long story short, I seen Ronnie James Dio with one of his minders or one of his manager, whoever it was, and he walked through the terminal, and I walked up to him and I said, excuse me, Ronnie. And he goes, what? And he's rubbing his hands, and he goes, what can I do for you, kid? And I said, I really would love if you signed this album. And he goes, sure. And he wrote on my album, Rainbow Live on Stage, Magic, Ronnie James Dio. And I put it back in his sleeve. I shook his hand. And I also had my Dehumanizer CD, and he signed that. And I thought, mate, don't get any better than this. And then later on, probably within 10 or 15 minutes through the terminal, I seen Tony Iommi. I got him to sign my Dehumanizer album. I got Geezer to sign it, and I got Vinny Appice. So basically, I got the whole band to sign my Dehumanizer CD, and I've got my Rainbow Live on Stage album signed by Ronnie James Dio. And I can tell you, I didn't sleep for 3 days. I remember the first big day out I went to, I climbed the fence and jumped the fence with a few mates. And we ended up backstage of the main arena and rolling under a table where they're selling T-shirts, and rolled out in the crowd and jumped up and just jumped in the crowd as if we were amongst the crowds. And I remember when we were walking behind the main stage, there was like all these trailers or all these makeshift tents. And I remember seeing Soundgarden. They were in one of the tents. And I just went, wow, there's Soundgarden. I remember being at an AFL game down in Victoria. It was the Kangaroos and Carlton, because I like Carlton. And I remember lining up to get a beer, and about three people behind me was Tim Rogers. And you know what? I was, should I or shouldn't I? And I had this sort of, hi Tim, how are you? I like you, am I think you're great, unreal. He put out his hand and he goes, thank you, mate, that's really nice. I said, can I just say this? I said, the other night I'm at home and I'm listening to Live at the Wireless, and they happen to be the band on Live at the Wireless. Anyway, between one of their songs, they broke into the intro to Detroit Rock City, which is a Kiss song. And for the punters at home, they just did the intro. Then they stopped. Then the drummer just goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they went into one of their songs. But I tell you this, if you didn't know Detroit Rock City, you wouldn't know what song they were doing, or what piece of music they were doing. So I just told Tim Rogers and I said, by the way, I listened to you guys the other night at Live at the Wireless, and I liked that little piece of Detroit Rock City. And he put out his hand again and he shook my hand. He goes, what's your name, mate? I said, Alex. He said, Alex, thank you so much, and it's so nice to meet you. And I remember bumping into Rob Younger at the airport, and I seen him up the top of the escalators, and I had to run up the escalators and say to him, Rob, I just want to say you're unreal, and I love Radio Birdman. And he said, oh mate, I'm a bit embarrassed by you saying this. I said, well mate, I love you, I think you're unreal. He goes, oh thank you very much. I said, I'll let you go. He goes, all right mate, have a nice day. So, I remember being at the White Horse at Surrey Hills. Tex Perkins walk-ins to buy 2 long necks or a long neck, and a mate of mine was working at the bar, and I said to him, oh, there's Tex Perkins. And he goes, oh, wow, he comes in here all the time. And I walked up to Tex and I said, Tex, I just want to say if I can get your autograph. He goes, yeah, sure, mate, no worries. And he autographed a brown paper bag that you put your long necks in at the bottle shops. Cruel Sea were one of the best bands I think I've ever seen at the Big Day Out. And the Big Day Out, you get an array of talent, I know, but I'll never forget the Cruel Sea, mate. They had that crowd under a spell. You know, that whole honeymoon is over era. I got involved with Steve Arkle's pharmacy because Steve Arkle and Arkle's pharmacy because they asked me to play, and we played the other night and we had fun, and let's hope we can sort of go on with it. You know, I think just to play music and have some fun. It's about it and what it's all about. Hey, listen, let's go out for dinner, but after dinner, why don't we go see some live music? It doesn't matter if it's a guy playing a guitar, a lady playing a keyboard with a fabulous voice. Doesn't matter what genre of music you like, but you know, you don't have to do it every weekend, but even if you did it once a month, come on, let's get the team, let's get the guys, let's get the girls. We are going to see live music. Well, mate, I can tell you now, 5.5 years, I'll still be playing music, you know, and I'll still be surfing and getting on with my life. But that's what I'll be doing. I still got a few more. Well, I still got a lot more bands I want to see. Still got a lot more travelling I'd like to do.
If you could go and see a band or an artist, past or present, tonight, who would it be?
Jeez. Oh, dude. Hey, I'd love to see Elvis. Love to see Elvis.
Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
Hendrix or Clapton?
Hendrix.
Hagar or Lee Roth?
Hagar.
Frida or Agnetha?
I loved Frida.
Dance floor or seated?
Dance floor, man. You want to feel it.
Now, the question here is generally Fender or Gibson, but you're a drummer, so I'm debating whether to make it Zildjian or Pearl or Tama or what's your brand?
I'll answer that. I love Ludwig, but I love other brands as well. But if someone was to walk in now and say, mate, I've got the money, I'll go buy you a brand new kit, I go for a Luddy any day. Gibson or Fender, mate, I love them both. Depending on what styles I'm listening to, but give me a Gibson. Give me a Gibson.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Beer or something else?
No, I love a beer. Love a beer.
MTV or Rage?
Ooh, Rage.
Vinyl or streaming?
Vinyl, man. Vinyl.
Stairway to Heaven or Bohemian Rhapsody?
Stairway.
Last one. It's 1 a.m. You've seen a band. You've had a few drinks. It's almost time to head home. What's your kebab order?
It's a chicken kebab with everything. Yeah. Hi, I'm Spango, and you can find my story at the Australian Rock and Roll Museum. Go check it out.